Hi, Dr. B here. Welcome to Dr. B Uncensored, where we interview candid thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and founders to tell their story to inspire others to do the same. Hopefully, you enjoyed this episode. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Dr. B Show. I'm here, Dr. B, with the great Ian Noble. Ian, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here, and I want to hear more about your story. I think you could relate to a lot of the folks that are in my network, and then bring a lot of value to the conversation today. So awesome, man. So let's. I always say it could be the easiest or the hardest question. So tell everyone about yourself.
Bring it. Yeah, let's do it.
That's your first question. Tell me about yourself.
So, a little bit about myself. I grew up in Austin, Texas, and was around the small business my whole life. My dad had a dry cleaning company and spent a lot of my childhood there, kind of seeing how he did it. And over the years, I ended up going to school here at the University of Texas. At the time when I got out of school, it was 2008 or 2009, and it was a tough time to find a job. And I thought I wanted to go work corporate, and my dad said, "Hey, come give this a shot." So I got into the dry cleaning business and didn't have any intention to. And from there, just really learned the ropes of how to run a small business. Bought it from him a few years later. So went 7 figures in debt and started that whole process of building the business back and really getting it into a position that I was happy with, because it had a really good foundation, but profit was non-existent or had a lot of room for growth. And then along the way, I fell in love with real estate and started buying investment properties here in Austin locally, single family rentals, small commercial properties, and did that all along the way as I was running my business. Other than that, I'm a dad of 3 kids. I've got 3 little ones under 5 years old. Been married to my wife who I met at UT, and yeah, we have a good time. Love to travel, and that's our life in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it. Good, good. And we'll talk more about that, right? You summarize it in 2 minutes, but we'll break it down a little bit more. So I love that. You did speak about UT, right? Besides meeting your wife, how did that education help you, if at all, in what you're doing today? Whether it's a dry cleaning or the real estate or both. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so parents will, if they listen to this, if their kids are going to college, they won't like this answer, but UT was great for personal development for me. Just being alone, and you're kind of becoming a man or a woman at that, figuring out what life's going to be like. On the education side, so I was an economics major. Summing it up, I was decent at math, but it wasn't my core focus there. So I wish, I hear about, people's education now. I wish I would have had actionable, uh,
The
real life
actional like
examples that we
degree,
would
yeah.
have worked
A
with.
doctor,
Yeah,
you
but
go to med school.
you know how it
Law
is.
school.
Like a
Right,
lot of
right,
times
exactly.
school's all theory. So we did a lot of theory stuff that was hard to apply to real world. So no, I don't feel like getting out, it was, helped me in small business, but I do think personal development, it helped me quite a bit.
Love it. Love it. It makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Um, you spoke about like taking over the business from your dad, right? The 14 years dry cleaning company. You grew it to 14 locations, 90 employees. Um, so what made you like shift that one day and say, you know what? I'm tired. I'm done with it. Like, what was it? Was it a specific moment or moments that led to that? Kind of, I mean, well, first of all, tell us a little bit about like the details, how that had happened. You took it over for your dad. How'd you manage to grow it? And then one day you said, hey, I'm done. That's a long-winded question.
Yeah, sure. I'll condense it. There are lot of scars along the way. When
That's
I
causing you
first got
bound.
involved, he was still the owner, but he wasn't going in as much, and there was a team that was running it and doing the best that they could. I was young, so I got in and started to try to find my identity. It wasn't like I went in and started working in the office the first day. I wanted to learn it from the ground up. So I started pressing clothes. We had bad quality, and that's what the business depends on. The business had survived because of low prices, and so just kind of learned my way from pressing clothing to taking orders to treating stains. I was very much just working at wherever I felt was best needed. But what really, the processes that we put in place afterward were the most important. Like we didn't, no staff was required to wear uniforms. at the time there was no point of sale system. There was no marketing. We had a coupon up on the website all the time, so that just became the price. There were so many little things and tweaks that needed to be made. And so over the years, in Austin, that business, it was called Rick's Cleaners. Rick was my dad. And my mind started to change kind of after COVID. I was willing. I worked all the time, and I enjoyed doing that. And small business is hard, but COVID was difficult because it was like overnight our business almost shut down. We lost 85% of revenue immediately, and here I am, 14 leases. We had 3 cleaning facilities, 95 employees. And I had to go have those conversations and just say, okay, how are we going to make this work? And it was survival mode for a year. And after I'd gone through that, it was amazing. It was like somehow a silver lining. People stopped bringing their clothes in to get dry cleaned. But what I was able to do was we were able to, raise prices, work on processes more, and even without bringing in more business, we were more profitable than we had ever been. And so it kind of let me see the light. We were working on thin margins, and yeah, it taught me a lot. Again, it's long hours, and I think one day after I believe I got an email, and this guy, it was like a cold email outreach, we want to buy your company. And I thought, okay. And funny enough, I started talking to that guy, and probably, I was presented an offer pretty quickly, but I didn't know what the value, I had never sold a business before, and I didn't know what the worth of it was, and I didn't want to sell myself short. So, from that point on, we just started discussing, and then eventually he was the one that ended up buying the business, and it worked out great. But to answer your question, because I skipped over like what was the why that made me want to get out. I became emotionally detached from the business. I was real proud about being the owner for several years, and then there's like that light switch in your head that goes off. And sometimes when you turn that switch off, it's hard to get it back on. And I was having a hard time finding my drive in that business. I felt like my time was done there, and I miss it. When I walked away from it, it's small. I think anyone in business, if they exit something, you have a bit of an identity crisis, like who am I now? Because so much of my life was, was in that role. But mainly, yeah, emotionally detached. It was making great money, and I had a lot of years ahead of me to run that business, but it was time for me to move on.
I love it. I love it. That's very interesting how that all that helps. So sometimes, to the more the story is cold, cold. Was it cold calling, cold outreach does work, right?
Answer
If
that
done right.
email, and always, I'll tell you a quick story that I know you didn't ask this, but
Sure, sure.
uh, on cold emails, answer phone calls that you might not recognize. I did that, landed the largest job we ever had, six-figure job in the
Wow.
dry cleaning world is insane.
Right.
And yeah, picked up the phone one day at like 6:30 in the morning. The business was closed, and I said, "What the hell? I'll answer the phone." And so you never know where opportunity will lead you.
Exactly. I love that. I love that. Hey man, so regarding to the sale, did you work with a business broker to like get your documents in order, your financials in order, or being that you, like you said, you took over that business, right, and you was able to put together SOPs so everything was in place. So was it easier, like when the sale did come? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I wish I could say that I had a robust SOP system, but we were, over the years, my business acumen grew, and but organization was never my strong point. And when I did go and work with a broker, I wanted to make sure that the value of the business was correct, and that helped me kind of clean stuff up. But what we did was when I found the broker, we ended up, in the contract, I put that if I sold to the original guy that we'd been talking to, or that I've been talking to for 6+ months, that, there's no commission there for the broker. And, he went into this, that transaction knowing that. And the process was really eye opening. It taught me a lot about running a business and things that I could have done better. The person that purchased me was he had M&A background, and he was, in the business of acquiring companies with large consulting groups, and knew a lot more about it than I did. So along the way, I learned a lot through that process, and then this light bulb went off, and I'll share this with listeners in case you're in a position to where someday you want to sell your company. There are multiples that your business is valued off of, and whatever your target may be, when you're getting ready to sell, you need to think in terms of opportunity cost of what a sale could cost. And I'll break that down. So let's pretend that in your industry, there's a 4 multiple on EBITDA or on your net income or however that metric you've decided on. Every dollar that you spend that isn't increasing revenue can cost you $4. And so always have this mindset of like, if I'm going to spend $10,000 on something that may be unnecessary or won't benefit my revenue right now, that could potentially be a $40,000 drop in the value of my business. So I always just kind of let people, share that one because the way I thought about stuff, do I really need to repair this? Do I really need to paint this? Don't neglect your business. It's obviously you need to pass it on in good condition to the next person, but be cautious with your spending leading up to when you're ready to sell your company.
It makes a lot of sense, right? It's like similar to a house. While you're if you're gonna rent it out, you don't put the best. You put the stuff that's okay. You don't put the best, the
That's
best
right.
countertops and all that. That makes a lot
Yeah.
of exactly just enough where it's serviceable, right? Awesome. All right, so let's fast forward. So you sold the business and then you discovered real estate. Like you said, you started buying residential and commercial as long-term rentals. Did you have a mentor along the way to help you with that, or you just YouTube University and Google you? Tell me a little bit about that.
I think that indirectly, the one mentor was my dad. He wasn't doing residential rentals, but part of the reason he could step away from the business when he did was he had commercial rentals, and I saw the lifestyle that brought. He wasn't heavily involved with those either, and yet over time, it provides income that comes in when you're not working on things. And so indirectly, probably him. What really triggered me deep down to get started, and then it was Bigger Pockets. So this was 2014. I was listening to a lot of Bigger Pockets. At the time, the host was Brandon Turner, and the whole message was like, go get a house, and you can rent it, refinance it, rehab it, refinance it, and so forth. Um, and try to get a couple $100 a month in cash flow. So it wasn't, underwriting at that stage for me wasn't very it wasn't in depth for what I do today. Back then, it was just like, okay, what's my mortgage? What is potential rent? And do I have a little bit left over? And that honestly was the way that I approached my first couple properties. There wasn't much thought beyond
I
that.
like today, where in commercial, where in my case, I look at cap rates, equity multiplier, right? The rent.
Sensitivity
Yeah,
analysis,
exactly.
you know, yeah, interest rate caps, all the
Yeah.
stuff that goes into these projections now. But I tell people in real estate, if it's something you want to get involved with, uh, analysis paralysis is real, and don't get stuck, especially if it's like a single family home or a rental that you want to try out in your market. You don't have to go. So some of the gurus might get upset with me saying this, but like you don't have to go that far in depth to get started, and also don't expect much cash flow for your first several years. It's a slow game, and it's a wealth building tool, but don't quit your day job by going and buying a rental because there might be a couple $100 left over at the end of the month. That's not enough to support you. Where it really changes is 10 years down the road when perhaps that tenant has paid your building off, and now you've got options for leverage. You have equity in this property. Um, so but it doesn't come quickly. It takes a long time.
Trust me, I know. Going through it now, it's a long game for sure. But I love it.
Yeah.
I love that, man. So, um, one of my when I was looking at your profile, right? So, how can business owners, you think, can be landlords without being a landlord?
So when you're running your business, a lot of people's worth is tied up in their company. And as a small business owner, and this is kind of the market I like to talk to, we obviously work with everybody, but uh, I speak that language because I lived it for so many years. I think it's important to start building wealth outside of your business. And there are only a handful of ways to do that. You can start another business, you can invest in the market, in the stock market, you can do real estate. Nowadays, there's more, creative ways to do this, but I think that business owners should really take a look at, okay, what would happen tomorrow if I had a stroke or, I was in a car accident? Like, does the business go on without me? Does it, how do I provide income for my family? And I'm not talking like disability insurance. I'm talking, real long-term stuff. If you look at it that way, and you can slowly start to plant these seeds, whether it be in real estate, that was my choice, but there are other ways to do it. If you're intentional about doing that, then it allows you the freedom, whether that be, usually it's time freedom. Yes, the money's a component of it, but a lot of it's time and the emotion of feeling maybe I'm not so as trapped as I think that I might be, to where one day you can step away, and maybe you could walk away and have the same income you were making, if you put in enough years. That was always my goal before. I thought, I'm gonna get these rentals, and I wanted to match my income that I got from the business through my rentals. And I thought, okay, when those equal each other, then I can check out. It never got there, right? Like the business was successful. I was doing much better off there, but then walking away when the fun stopped, and the draws and the salary that I would pay myself, when it all ended, it's like, okay, you still need something. You can't just hang up your hat for life. So real estate was that was that thing that for me. So yeah, I always tell people, just get started somehow, whether it's with somebody. And your question on being a landlord, or not being a landlord.
Landlord without being a landlord.
That's right. Yeah, there's different ways to do it. And the first time I discovered, for me, that was like passive investing in real estate. Number one, I thought it was crap. I thought, what is this like? How are people passive? But I just didn't know better. And so after selling the business, I dove really heavily. This was in 2023. So I dove deep into like tax strategies. How can I reduce my payment that will be going to the IRS? So I took advantage of some tax code that was there, and because real estate is very beneficial with tax code. um, you can write off some of your income depending on your structure. Not legal advice, but it has so many, it's very tax advantageous relative to regular careers. So I found out that I can park. It was October 2023, and I figured I can't go out and have broker relationships and find this property and then use it for a tax benefit this year. It's too fast. So instead, I thought, well, let me look towards other groups. It's that whole like who not how mentality, and maybe there's someone out there who's already doing it and who's further along in the process, and they have a team, and they know what they're doing. So from a control standpoint, as an entrepreneur, it was hard, but I found partners and good people that I felt comfortable placing money in. I now own equity in you know places all over the country. Honestly, the way these things are spread out, some of them are big funds in different states. If someone say, how many units are of uh, mobile home parks do you have, or which, because I like mobile home parks, that's kind of my thing I do now. It's difficult, it's hard to even say, because when you're a passive investor, you really spread it out, and you don't have to deal with the headaches of being a landlord, because like I can tell you, I'm still an active landlord locally, and for my properties I've got here, and like they're nightmare stories. It's not glamorous like the internet makes it seem to be.
I agree, and that's why I started as an LP, as limited partner on a
Yeah,
hotel, and then now like with a team more on the active side, for that reason. I was like, oh man, I don't want to deal with that initially, right? So I love that,
I know.
and
You and you've got kids. I've got little kids.
yeah,
It's like there are priorities. You can go do all this stuff yourself and you can make it, but sometimes working as a team, yeah, has a lot of benefits, and
absolutely. And then spread it
uh,
out where
yeah,
someone is property manager, someone is a capital raiser, someone else the attorney, right? So
that's
underwriter.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So why do you think, despite knowing, I guess, real estate, there's a lot of other vehicles. I agree, right? In order to, when it comes to being a landlord without being a landlord, or tax saving strategies, why do you think a lot of these high income entrepreneurs still feel broke? Is it like that whole real estate rich, cash poor, or I don't know? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, the reason that I feel people feel broke is, simply put, that a lot of people live beyond their means. Um, you can, it's that whole golden handcuffs um, analogy of like, you're getting paid really well, but there's a lifestyle creep that comes with that. And so, number one, at the fundamental of personal finance, spend a lot less than you make. Live beneath your means. That way, you can put your money towards something that helps you earn. A lot of people, this changes as they age. When you're younger, it's like you want, and maybe not, but for some people, I see like material things are very important, flashy cars, or having the nicest place on the block. And then you
Sounds like me
see
in the
that,
20s, in my 20s now.
right?
I'm
Yeah,
not like that.
same. It's like part of you like feels okay. That's how I can show my worth. Maybe when you're not confident in yourself or whatever it may be. There's a lot of social pressure now, like social media. Everyone's on yachts and has Lamborghini.
Exactly.
Who knows what's true anymore? You could put yourself on AI in front of a new supercar, but you know yeah, lifestyle creep is real, and then back to feeling broke. If you just work W-2 and you have a high paying job, tech, sales, whatever it may be, you're just if you don't have any strategy in place, you're getting taxed at whatever your income bracket is. And when we say high earners, um, generally they're at the highest tax bracket, or getting close to it. And so it's like you earn all this money, but you give away a lot of money, and real estate provides a lot of opportunity to set yourself up for two different ways to take advantage of it. First would be um, if you're a real estate professional, which many are not, but it provides that ability to offset your investments, the depreciation that comes from it against your ordinary income. But if you're just, if you're a sales guy and you're going to remain a sales guy, you can still take advantage of the tax benefits of real estate and just bank whatever you get from your depreciation loss, which is on paper. It's not you really losing money. It's something that the IRS allows for. Um, then you have that. Think of it like as a virtual piggy bank for future passive gains that you can offset taxes there. You can't do that, and you could have a solid year in your sales job, and there is no such thing as like tax strategy. It's like you're gonna get taxed to the highest degree. And then the question, this being in real estate, but it's like you get people saying, well, that seems too good to be true, or that's cheating. And it's like, no, it's using it's using tax code and resources that are available to you. And honestly, shame on if you have something in front of you, right, and you don't take it, and it's to benefit you. Shame on you. You had an opportunity. And so I look at it through that lens, as like thinking outside the box to how can I keep more of what I earn.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, it's a code there in front of you to use, right? Right. It's like shame on us,
Yeah.
right? For not knowing about it, right? Um, Follow up to that question, right? So how can business owners like reduce their taxes through real estate?
The strategy that I have seen a lot of people do is sometimes it's it helps if your spouse is involved. So sometimes, and this can work for business owners, doctors do this. If your spouse does not work and you have property or rentals, specifically short-term rentals, I'm seeing a lot of people taking this course right now, or going this route, where they can be actively involved in a short-term rental, and run that property, manage it more than anybody else, spend more time than another career, in there, and then can try to qualify for real estate status. Again, you don't have to be there, but I think there is a massive savings, especially if you're a successful business owner, to try to figure out a way to get your spouse involved. This is a finance is a team sport. Even if you're the earner, I have a friend, for example, his wife owns a small business. She kicks ass. Like it's a consulting company, and she does phenomenal. He was working and getting a six-figure job. I think I'm making numbers up, right? But maybe in my head, 250,000 dollars. And they found a way to, as a real estate professional, when he focused on that and stopped working, with her income and them investing in a property or doing depreciation studies to get paper losses, net he was earning more for his family by not working because he could solely focus on the real estate piece of it, and all through depreciation. The 100% bonus depreciation came back. I won't get into all the details of that on here, but point is there's a lot of opportunity out there. And so I think for business owners, yeah. And then also, um, even if you have a business, try to buy a building, or if you're renting your space, if there's an opportunity to buy it, even for like new business owners getting in, if you're going to buy a company, and you're taking out an SBA loan, your terms on your debt and your financing are much better and more preferable if you can roll a property into there and you can amortize it over many more years. And so for whatever reason, it's there are way more opportunities if you're involving real estate in any sort of transaction to help you in the long run and help your bottom line.
I love that. That's a good way to put it. I'm winding down, man. I'm enjoying our conversation, but I believe when you switch from active to passive, usually it's the other way around, right? So why did you make the switch? Because exactly what we discussed at the top of the hour, like, hey, I don't want to deal with the tenants and the toilets and trash and termites. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I've had my fair share of headaches
Yeah.
as an active landlord, and it was also difficult. The mentality that I had has changed because before I used to think about, I was the person that I thought would get it done and get it done best. And I think it's good to have confidence in yourself, but you get to a point to where it's difficult to scale that way. So if I was to go buy a property at a time by myself, I think long term, that would benefit me well. But you can really you can kind of pre-allocate, or set aside some of the funds that you have available today, and you can really spread it out across the US and various asset classes, and then finding good people to work with. You've seen this in the business. It's like so many people, there'll be these projections that are presented to people, and not that a lot of it's intentionally crap, but it ends up being crap. It's like you got to find good people who you trust and you want to work with. And what kind of led me to get into the passive side was, there was a private lending fund that, when I sold my business, I put money into a money market account. At the time, it was 5.5%. It's now down to 4, or just beneath. And I thought, okay, this is good. I'm a low risk person by nature. Like, what can I do that is one level up, that, risk is still very low, but I'm earning a better return? Because again, that goes back to that thing of like, if opportunity is in front of you and you're not taking it, shame on me, shame on you. So what led me into that, once I had seen that process work and I thought, wow, there's a team of 30 people doing this and I'm not doing anything, and I'm making equal or better returns to what I would be making as an active investor doing the work, let's pump the brakes a second. And so I found that passive investing gave, me the opportunity to look at everything through the lens of an opportunity cost. If I know I can earn 8, 9, or 10% by just parking money somewhere, then is it worth it if I can earn a percent more doing it myself, or, on one property instead of, 200 properties and spread out. So just a lot of opportunity. And then what kind of led me into the business, of helping people, is like, I wish somebody 10 years ago would have come to me and said, you don't have to do one property at a time. There's a better way. And it's not to say that passive investing, it comes with risk, right? Like everything does. Ultimately, like if you don't have full control, then you are placing your fortune or misfortune, everything in
Someone
the
else's
hands
hands, right?
of
Or the
somebody
team's
else.
hands, right? Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And like that's the hardest part for anybody that's like, it's because stuff happens. And but what I do now is I try to advocate for business owners. I focus on low risk, um, passive investments. So private lending is one that's always there. And then I do mobile home parks. And mobile home parks, they come and go. By the way, for mobile home parks have a bad stigma, and a lot of people hear that and they think, my family included, like, you invest in trailer parks. It's like,
Trailer
hold on a
park. Yeah, exactly.
minute. Yeah.
Trailer park
It,
trash.
that's right. Yeah, but it's like,
Democracy.
if you drive in your city and you can see trashy homes, little single family homes. There's trashy apartment complexes, and then you have nice homes, nice apartment complexes. Same thing goes in this world. Now they call it manufactured housing communities, but back in the day it was mobile home parks, trailer parks, and sometimes that title has stuck. But they're very nice ones. They provide affordable housing. There's community that's that families that live there. Hardworking people. You can keep the places clean, and so for me, I like it because I don't want to say that it's been like under the radar, but I value low risk and consistency over hitting the home run on an investment because I worked my tail off to save money over the years of the business, and the last thing I want to do is you know gamble it or go into something that is promising really big returns that I know is a stretch. And you've seen this in the last couple of years in the industry, like a lot of people got in trouble with, and not knowing, debt interest rates changed and they got into a bad situation. And so that's why I like those two avenues and created a network to introduce those deals to people. Just because number one, I didn't know where to find them before. And number two, you got to have somebody who's on your team and doing it with you. So like I put all my own money and everything first. And then it's like, okay, pass all these checks. Is the person a good person? Have I visited the site? How their background check look? All that stuff to try to mitigate the risk for my own money and then anybody that hops on board with us when we go into projects.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. You got to try first. When it works for you, then obviously have others do it. That's been my motto as well. As well.
Yeah, could you imagine anything in life like being trained by someone and them? It's like having a trainer at the gym that is like
Yeah, he's like
has
five.
never trained.
Right, never
It's like
exactly.
he's like, what am I
Exactly.
doing here?
One of my last questions, man. Well, actually, one of my last questions is, what advice would you give business owners looking to sell and looking to real estate as their next endeavor?
If I touched on it a little bit earlier, but looking to sell, I would definitely get the help of I would reach out and get the help of a broker. I think my scenario is unique. Not everybody gets an email from someone who's legit that actually can put the pieces together to buy your business. So I would work with a broker, get your business valued. A lot of them, and I would start early too. So if you're like, I want to sell by June of 26. I think that yesterday is when you should have gotten a business broker because a lot of them in the good ones, I know a few here locally, they work with you in advance from almost like a consulting style to say like, hey, let me get you the most bang for your buck. And so number one, yeah, start early, start the planning process, research ways how you can make that sale more tax advantage to you. A lot of times people are doing seller finance and there's obviously risk that comes with that, but then your income is spread out. So it provides some security long term if you really trust in the owner in the business, and then it can reduce your taxes on the immediate point. But transitioning into real estate, I think is just a good, you have to, if you have a successful exit, you have to park your funds somewhere. And getting into real estate, if you put them into the market, like the market's been great. I have people like my stuff's boring. Like it's like you can get 8%, and then my friends that do S&P 500 are
S&P,
like,
right?
oh, I get
Exactly.
like 20%. Like it's not
Right.
your 8% sucks. And I just tell them, hey, good for you. Like you keep doing that, but number one, there's no control. The markets are volatile. We've been on a run, and while I think for people, especially for people my age, they haven't seen a downturn like what families went through in 2008 when they thought they were about to retire. It hit everything, right? It hit real estate too then, but my point is like I like having a little bit more control, and so I would get into something that feels low risk. If it looks too good to be true, don't get involved with it. I think it's cool when people do have success in riskier investments. Like really, I'm proud of them. They're putting themselves out there to do that, but it just didn't fit my appetite, and so find something that will preserve your capital. That's rule number one, and something that doesn't feel doesn't make you ask, how does that work? How in the heck can I get that kind of return? Because generally, like even if you feel like you're not a real estate person, like that gut instinct that you have is probably right.
I love that. I love that, man. On that note, where could people find information about you, or if they want to work with you to some in some capacity?
Yeah, so what I'll do for the listeners of this show, in the show notes, we'll include, it's like a free gift of, it's a passive investment guide that just basically walks someone through who has interest in that space. good questions to ask, what to do before you get involved with your first one. Use it as a resource for anyone that you do business with. Secondly, my website is runsteadyinvestments.com. You can find me on LinkedIn as well, so we'll include those links. But yeah, just like having conversations with real people, and happy to help and direct people in any way I can, regardless of if it's with my business or not. Like, I just think everyone wins by sharing, and yeah, I appreciate you bringing me on the podcast and getting to share a little bit about my story.
No problem. I enjoyed it. We probably could have went another hour, but I just
Sorry,
told
I
you those
ramble.
attention
Yeah,
spans is like 30 minutes. So I was like, all right, we gotta cut it.
no
So
problem.
I love it. Ian, thank you so much for being on my show. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for having me. Enjoyed it.
Thank you, man. Thanks. Ian Noble, everybody. Hi, everybody. Dr. B here, Dr. B Uncensored. Hopefully, you enjoyed that episode. Remember, you are one big deal away. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel now. Take care.